All right. Welcome to another episode of The Grow Room. Today, we're doing show and tell. I'm with TJ and Yash. How you guys?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am excellent.
All right. So today we're doing a show and tell. So each of us, we went back during the break and we picked out some stuff we found very interesting in the cannabis industry, some new stuff, some stuff we thought that was very interesting. We thought we'd show and tell to everyone here. So I know what I did. The first thing I did to tackle this was I went to Nature. Nature's a basically a research journal where they publish all these like the latest and greatest basically like peer reviewed stuff and stuff that people really care about in science. So the first thing I came with is and the title of this is long, so bear with me. It's called Challenges and Potentials of New Breeding Techniques in Cannabis Sativa. Now, what is the entire article about? They start off, and what their primary focus is to try and tell people is it's hard to do a lot of the new breeding techniques and a lot of like what we want to do with breeding in cannabis. And what they realized and what they thought was most important was to tackle that process here with, breeding. And so one thing they realized is the time it takes to breed and the expense with breeding. And because you have male and female plants, basically we should be looking towards, a much quicker form of breeding and getting to new traits with cannabis. And so they are taking a look at CRISPR, right? Now, for people who don't know what CRISPR is, it's basically like a gene editing tool that lets you like tackle very specific genes and modify them while the plant's alive. And this works in different stages. You can do different things, but what they're trying to tell you and what they're trying to get people to focus on is how to use this specifically to target things for yield, for yield, THC, and flower, generation. And basically, if there's if you can make breeding more efficient than what it is today. So that's my intro. If you guys have any questions and you want to let's open this up to discussion. What do you guys think? So this is a study that these guys basically are like, we looked at the data, we see the issues, we see the problems, and we think CRISPR is a solution to the medical industry and this idea of targeting traits.
That's actually like interesting because it's funny because we did bring it up in I forget if it was the last one and
We
one
did,
before,
yeah.
but
It did just come up, like, yeah.
yeah. um and so they haven't did they test it yet on a plant whether they'd be able to like use CRISPR on it?
So they haven't. I don't think they've tested it, but what they have done is they've basically mapped out what you would target, how you would target it, and in what way.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
and so they're making the case that this is basically what we should be focusing on. That cannabis has a lot of problems and as far as it being complex, but breeding is slow and expensive. And what they're saying is CRISPR has over the last however long become a game changer. So it allows you to like I said before, you can edit the genome, and basically what they're saying is there's from like regular plants from other stuff, they're able to basically tell how to directly influence traits like disease resistance and improving cannabis production, which I imagine that's the Like that's what you would want to be able to target if it's something like, medical. They just want to get all the main traits that they want maximized, and then they know they're good.
Yeah, no, that's pretty crazy, one, and it does because like you said, breeding takes long because you gotta wait until the correct genes match up. Um, so if you can just start with the correct genes, then it's just keeping clones that cuts down breeding a ton.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that they were pointing out here was when you breed, you have this issue where you basically tend to and you end up because it's slow and expensive, and you also get other traits that you weren't expecting, or traits that change that you
Mhm.
didn't want changed. It's more effective in medical cannabis, especially where you can target these things and not change the things you don't want changed. And that can retain things like CBD levels. It can retain things like THC levels, or certain terpene stuff, because you don't want to change the things that you want to keep. You know.
Mm.
Yeah. So just key takeaways, for people who are interested in this study, because this is something that I think in the next 5-10 years we're going to be seeing a lot more of this come out. I think CRISPR alone, in the last 5-10 years, we've seen so much. So I can't wait to see what they're going to be doing with it in cannabis. Those two have to collide. But key points to take away, CRISPR gene editing techniques are revolutionary, and they can and probably will revolutionize the cannabis breeding. To cannabis, THC and CBD are incredibly important for the commercial and the medical side. So when you focus on not lowering those, and targeting specific genes, you can probably maximize things like disease resistance, maximize things that you want to keep, and reduce the things that you don't want to keep. And then just generally, if you notice how slow it is with breeding, most people realize that it's probably a lot cheaper to mass CRISPR particular plants than to just wait the entire cycles to breed them. So yeah, game changer as far as what these guys are mapping out and what they're explaining here.
Alright.
All right, so you want to go take the next one, TJ?
Sure. Um, as usual, my stuff is growing oriented. So I took a dive into aquaponics, and it's not, a fresh new way. It's been around a couple of years, but it is very interesting science. Um, Basically, the concept of aquaponics is having, your canopy, all your plants even, and no soil, no medium. Um, and you dip the roots in a fish tank type deal. You do have fish growing in there, and it's kind of a synergistic relationship where the fish poop eventually gets turned into nitrogen, which would be a food source for the plants. Um, and then in turn the plants oxygenate the water, which the fish need, as well as bacteria. That the bacteria is there to kind of uh, cause the nitrates to turn into nitrogen for the plant. So it is a all one cycle. There's a lot of fish you can use with it, which is really interesting. But a lot of people use tilapia or barramundis. Um, what's interesting is it is an all water system, but it does use a lot less water than things like soil growing.
Wait, that's cool. It's
Yeah.
aquaponics, but you're saying it
It,
could use less water?
uh, from what I read, it's a tenth of the amount of water, which does
Wow.
make sense. A lot of people don't think about this, but like when you grow in soil, right? Um, all that water you put spreads out into the earth, so not you end up having to use like a lot more water than you would in soil
Makes
because
sense.
not all of it, makes it to the plant.
That's crazy. So
Yeah.
so if you're using fish, does it
Mhm.
matter what fish, or can it be any fish?
It does matter what fish because like cannabis likes neutral pH levels. So fish that do well in neutral water, um, like if you have something that needs water to be too alkaline or too acidic, it's not gonna be like the best way to raise the fish and probably won't work. But I don't know that for sure.
Okay, so
Uh,
it's not like you're using the fish to make a whole ecosystem. You're still controlling the water's like pH and stuff.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you need to that's why well, so I mean you do have to that's like your major concern with this is you gotta control the pH as much as you can and keep in those zones because, if the pH changes, it affects the fish, which, then affects the plants, and then, the whole cycle kind of breaks down. Um
Do you think this has higher yields? Aquaponics?
um I haven't read anything about higher yields. It is a good way because, like, in recent, studies on cannabis, and I presume plants in general, is that like having like kind of exposed roots lets them be a little bit more free and lets them get a little bit stronger. And stronger roots means quicker nutrient path. So like they do um not mention specifically an increase in yields, but consistency as well as like having like a dual thing like because you're now raising fish and growing
Right.
whatever plant you it is a pretty efficient method that way.
So you have to be
um
good at raising fish too, then.
Kinda. I mean, you need to pay attention to how many fish, because the more the fish poops, the water's gonna change, right? So you do need to have like a balance, in that it seems. But you don't need to buy fertilizer anymore, or so like there's some give and takes from it. And then you also wouldn't really need like chemicals or like pesticides as much, or if at all, I'd imagine, because you'd want to avoid harming the fish.
Do you think?
Um,
Do you think like you can't use HPS lights because the fish it'll be in their eyes?
no, you could, cause like so like the canopy, and I don't know every single way for uh aquaponics, but so like think of it. There's a lid, right? And instead of having pots, right, you have like the roots kind of situated so that the plant is just like
In a home?
yeah,
Okay, so it's
essentially.
like the half of it, or the roots are in the
Yeah.
water, but the other above
And
it's above
yeah.
of some
So
lid
so
of some
yeah,
kind.
so you do have like a lid there
Interesting.
that hold the plants in place and straight up,
Maximum light.
but also, it would block the light coming down.
That makes sense. I feel like
Yeah.
this way it'll if there's any light, it'll bounce it back up on itself. So it'll yeah.
Yeah. I also think a lot of people do it outdoor more than indoor, I'd imagine. Um, though I don't know that for sure. But like a lot of
You're
the
saying
examples that
aquaponics.
yeah, a lot of the examples I've seen, they have like an outdoor like farm or like in a greenhouse. Um, uh, I don't know for sure whether that's like the most common way, but at least like almost every time I've seen it in a video or something, it's been kind of either greenhouse or they have like a section cut out where they make, the tank and the plants outside and do it by sunlight. Um,
That's crazy.
so,
You think we're
yeah.
gonna go towards this?
Um, I think some people, I think this is like a really good like organic route.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm looking at
so
here.
like
Yeah.
for people who want to grow organic, I think potentially this could like eventually be the way that leads the field in that. Um,
This seems like a lot of, if managed well, like one of those, it can be a lot of give and take. Like it self sustains. It could be
yeah,
cheaper over time, kind of thing. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it removes a lot of the process, and they know, at least from what I've read, at least nutrient content wise, it doesn't seem like as long as you got enough fish, it should be fine. So like the main issues would be, making sure one, the fish are fed, um, which I don't know how much fish food is, but I'd imagine it's significantly cheaper than like fertilizer. Um, but yeah, you remove fertilizer from it, you remove pesticides, at least like regular ones, um, and then
That's a big one,
less water.
and that's
Uh,
another big one.
actually,
And can you do this?
it does. Hold on, I need to retcon something because I remembered something from the article. A lot of people do it in controlled temperature environments, so like greenhouses and indoors. Um, if you're in a climate that allows it, which I'm assuming are the ones that I saw it outside for, you can do that outside because that's another thing. I wasn't thinking like the temperature outside is going to affect the fish. So, depending
Right.
on where you are, you might not be able to do it outside. So I guess more people would do it indoors.
Right. True. 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 Whether the environment's important.
Yeah.
So do you think there's, or this can be done in a way that has a specific controlled amount of water, and you just circulate, filter, circulate, let that kind of system?
Yeah, I'd imagine like when you're setting it up, you're one calculating how many fish you need to have the proper nutrients, and then from there you would figure out what the most efficient tank size is to accommodate that.
Is there anything about the fish swimming that helps this? Because like they're moving the water.
Them swimming in themselves, they didn't say anything about that. Um, so I'd imagine fish uh keep away certain bugs and stuff. It also like
Oh,
because yeah, because like I'd imagine any bugs that would lay water eggs in the water, that those get eaten.
I'm not
Um,
I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but what is there? Is it specific? Like, do you need a specific type of fish, like koi fish, betta fish?
so it's not a specific type of fish. Most people, I said before, use tilapia and barramundis. I might be pronouncing that second one wrong. I've never heard of that fish before. Um, but any fish that does good in like neutral pH water, would be fine theoretically.
Does the size of the fish matter, or
Well, yeah, in terms of in what way? Like, I mean, like obviously, like if the fish is too big for the tank, right? That's problematic because you need it. You need a fish that's going to,
it's
do
gonna live
well
there.
in the environment. Yeah, it's gonna live there. So if the fish is too big, then you know not
in
gonna really work.
Do they
in
need
the
light?
sense that, like, can you, let's say it's a big tank, but could you have multiple small fishes, or do you
Yeah,
want like
yeah.
one
No,
to
you.
two?
It's not just like one fish. It's like you have like a little family of fish, and it depends on how big your tank is and like how many plants you wanna house over one tank. but you need appropriate amount of fish for how many plants and tank size you got.
Okay,
What's that ratio then?
I do not know.
so I have a question. So as far as like what it looks like from, a home grower to commercial, can a home grower do this, with a single plant? And then second, like, can you do it with just like a small amount of fish? And is that fine? Like, we're taking
Yeah,
some fish, it's gonna live in a
yeah. I
trapped,
mean,
dark place for the rest of its life with just a few of its friends.
yeah. I'd imagine it's fine. I don't know exactly how low, because I don't exactly know the nutrient ratios in fish poop or fish emulsion. Um, but I know it's pretty high in nitrogen. Um, so I don't know the exact math, but I'd imagine there is a small amount of fish. You can do it at home by yourself, one plant. Um, the exact dimensions of what you would need, I don't know.
I'm wondering if we'll see something like this, because what I'm picturing here is there's two types of growers. There's the people who can afford all these like high tech hydroponic setup stuff.
Mhm.
And then there's this guy who's like, hey, I'm just gonna pick up a fish from my local creek, couple of them. I'm gonna whack these two things together, pick out a weed plant, and start growing. And you know what? If the fish does the job, I'm gonna start growing.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe it's like too
I'm
simplified, but just in the idea
I'm
that it's
sure.
cheaper. You know.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, uh, you know, it's depends on the fish, because like if you're grabbing a fish from like the wild, right, you kind of need to use the similar water to what it's used to. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I hope the whoever's out back doesn't, do this, and if they do, God bless them. But I mean, just even commercially, if someone wanted to do this, what I'm picturing in my mind is there's the guy that would spend, some on high end stuff, and then there's this guy who's basically saying, you know what, this might save me some money. It might be a little bit
well,
more work as far as taking care of these fish and stuff, and I might have to learn some new skills, but it could in the long run be cheaper.
yeah, yeah. I mean, aquaponics is known for being, one of the more expensive ones to get into, because you do need
Really?
well, because yeah, you need a lot of tech stuff to check the, um, water, check the nutrient content. You gotta, have gauges for, keeping it clean and whatnot, I'd imagine.
Mm.
So
Even
like there's a lot of tech aspects to a lot of aquaponics, though I'm sure, um, because like I don't know if you've ever heard of the oh, what's that method called? The wick method of growing plants.
nah.
Essentially, you put a string in some water and bring the other side of the string to the plant, and it drip feeds, so it like slowly
Okay,
drips
yeah,
water.
yeah, I know about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, people use that to grow plants as well. Um, so realistically, as long as you know all your meters are good, all your things are good. And I'd imagine it'd be difficult without the tech to really gauge, if even possible.
Would you need the
Um,
same thing with hydroponics though?
I kinda, yeah. You need a lot of tech for or not so much a lot of tech, but you need to test your water that you go
Yeah.
in with the nutrients, the ratio, its pH. Like you'd be doing a lot of crossover work with hydroponics. Aquaponics is kind of a deviation from hydroponics.
What do you think about like the costs for aquaponics then? Just like long term, if the tech and the buys are
Long,
not
lo-
counted, just
yeah,
like long term costs.
long term costs. I think it's cheaper then probably like definitely soil. And it's probably a little bit cheaper than hydroponics long term. Um,
If you could answer this,
mhm.
what do you think the smallest setup you could run is with the hydroponics, not hydroponics,
I
aquaponics? Sorry.
I you could probably um uh okay, and I don't know this for sure because uh if there is a small fish that,
Uh huh.
works, right? You could probably do this same exact concept in like a bucket.
Okay. You heard that
Um,
here, homegrowers.
and I mean, I mean, it'd be very ghetto and very like, guess and check. So like without the meters and stuff involved, right? I wouldn't guarantee that it'd be a great successful way to do it. But if there's a fish that's small enough to chill in the bucket and that be enough space for it. Like I said, I don't know for sure, but um, theoretically you could do it in a bucket. Though I don't know if there's a fish that would really do well in that kind of situation.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of fish in the sea, TJ.
They are. Yeah.
All right, Yash, you want to go with yours?
So I did something a little bit different. I didn't really focus on tech or growing per se. I went in the other aspect of education,
Mhm.
right? And I started researching what if in this day and age do colleges across the country are they specializing in cannabis, right? Because research is really big in universities. So I was like, huh, are there degrees that educate people to get in this industry? And I've been finding a lot. There's a ton of colleges across the country, in fact, that specializes in this. New York State actually has and I was looking specifically at New York State where they actually have a database on their on a government website which lists all the degrees and micro credentials and courses you can take that are offered within the state itself at their state colleges.
So then, is this something that like? I mean, do you think this is something that's going to be big? You think this is going to catch on?
Oh, 100%. I think it's catching on. I think New Jersey, just Stockton University, in fact, just is the first college to offer an undergrad degree in cannabis. Rowan University is offering masters, and Cornell, Colorado State, a lot of big names are offering business tracks and specific things that deal with the science of growing, the manufacturing, the law, and things of that nature.
Interesting.
Wait, so
Do you
what?
think?
Go ahead, yeah.
I was gonna say because like I don't remember when I was going to school there being like, is there an agricultural college?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and there's that because I mean I'm sure I mean like I've seen programs that had agricultural studies in them. But like I guess maybe I just wasn't around them. But it's weird to think that it's kind of coming back into the education system
I
and
mean,
maybe.
I used to hear from a lot of people who had the choice to get into agriculture or to go to college and get a regular degree, a different degree. And they always described it like, listen, it's with it going in agriculture. Either you're getting into a family business and you're taking this agriculture degree and you're going all in and you're making something, or you're going to be struggling and it's going to be useless for you. And so
Okay,
most of them decide that it's not worth it anymore, right? Like very few
right.
are able to go into it and then see the value in it today.
That's sad.
It is because I believe, I hope that that education would be valuable in that sector. So it's like you're missing out on that, and or our country's missing out on, you know.
Mhm.
So what exactly do they teach in, things like this?
A lot of it is business related. How to go about um what's the word? The supply chain of cannabis, product development, merchandising. Some actual degrees will focus on biology and actual growing with courses specifically in cannabis plants and cultivation. But it'll be like a major in biology with your focus primarily being cannabis.
I think that's what's really cool about this, because what I'm assuming that means is the job types are going to be just like this for cannabis, or this for cannabis. If the cannabis industry gets big enough, I can see that.
I think what's really cool though is the idea of a micro credential. So I was doing research, right? So a micro credential and a certificate are very similar, except certificates take a lot, maybe it'll take a little bit longer and it's a lot more coursework. While a micro credential is like one or two courses you have to take, right? But as soon as you do that, you can put like a badge saying, hey, I've specialized in this specific thing regarding cannabis. And a lot of places are providing cannabis micro credentials and specific things.
That's interesting. They're giving out credentials for these, but like you're saying with the micro credential, I don't know if that's some kind of play on we're giving you enough of what you need, or maybe they like the word micro because micro business, I don't know. But just the idea to me was like, if you're gonna give them a certificate, give them a certificate. What's if there's it sounds overcomplicated to give another name, make it another way of you telling people you got a certificate, basically. I
I
don't know.
think it's I think it's cheaper than the certificate when it comes to price, but also it's more targeted in terms of the coursework, right? So
Oh,
like certificates are a little bit more generalized sometimes, but this is more targeted in specific cannabis cultivation, for example. Like Niagara Community College has a micro credential in cannabis cultivation where they specifically just teach you how to grow cannabis. It won't be a general thing. It'll be like a two, 3 courses, and then that's it. You have those credentials after you pass the class.
I kind of like that system better. I feel like a lot of school systems they kind of spread you so much that you end up learning a lot of useless, or not so much useless, but useless to you individually, kind of information.
I think
Um,
what's Oh,
but
go on, TJ.
no,
Sorry,
no,
my
no,
bad.
you go. That I would just umming.
Um, what's really cool though is the New York State Department of Labor. So on the Department of label for New York State, right,
Mhm.
actually has a section where it tells you which colleges within New York are offering specific things and the type of degree, credential, certificate, training at the college of all the colleges in New York State
for cannabis.
for cannabis.
Wow. Okay, that's good. I knew New York was forward on it. I didn't think you'd see it on their Department of Labor and stuff. That's good.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's very forward of them.
Yeah.
And on that note, I mean, I'm thinking like, yeah, this is, if it's skill targeted, right? Like it's not as general as a certificate. You tend to get more value out of it because the certificate, people are like, you're getting all this general shit going for this general position, when in reality the employers are looking for specific skills, right? They're looking for very specific things. So even in the cannabis industry, something like, not saying that there's a class on this or some course, but if you had different things like a class on terpenes versus things on like growing, or something more specific in growing, but just getting that extra value add to your employer or to your employees is huge, because you as a business, you're just looking for what else can I give to my customer makes their life easier? What's an easy value add I can just send my employee to get this, easy credential, and maybe even look better to my shareholders, that we have the most credentialed employees. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I've seen that in practice actually. I think a couple of the dispensaries near me, some of their employees were telling me that they offer them free courses essentially, and one of them did include, terpene research and what the terpenes actually do.
That's fire.
Uh, yeah, no, can I name drop dispensary?
I mean,
Uh,
yeah, why not? We're in New
uh,
Jersey. I'm sure they know.
uh,
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm pretty sure I might be mixing it up, but I think it was Verano. One of their managers happens to come by my work,
This is an
and
official call. No, okay.
this guy. But yeah, he was telling me that he got to basically like every week just start a course on something, learn more about it. Um,
That's crazy. I would think that if you as an employer were able to identify what are the key courses and credentials that if your employees just got you, it would save you so much time and effort from either having to teach them or having to like make sure that they know it when hiring. Like, screw that. You could just send them to these credential courses and get them passed. I like that.
yeah. I like also the direction it sends cannabis users because, like, once I've said this before, but once we get people more on, like, terpenes and once, the research gets more solidified, um, it'd be interesting to see if, people still stick to the same kind of strains that
Yeah.
they've been sticking to, or if, now it's much a more diverse ecosystem of strains.
I do. That's another thing I'm thinking about when it comes to like education. Because there's so many strains, I
Mhm,
wonder how they're basically formulating this, because
mhm,
it seems like a lot of what you want to teach you can generalize about cannabis, and that's fine. But when it comes down to like individuals or individual cases, I mean, there tends to be a lot more that you want to focus on with individual traits and individual like plants, because they have different things that make each plant valuable, you know.
mhm.
All right.
No,
Should
Okay.
so should I go for? I have one more. Should I get to it?
Yeah, go ahead.
of course.
All right. Okay. So this one also, this is another study from that I found on Nature. This is another one based on like genetics in cannabis, but this one is kind of like, to me it looks like an addition to the previous one. The previous
Mm,
one was released in published or released in like June of 2023. This one, the second study, is published in April of 2024. So basically, a year later, these guys published this. Okay, so the
mhm,
first one, remember, we were talking about CRISPR. We are talking about these new tech that these guys that all these new people are using, and we're gonna now target traits and right, all this amazing stuff. A year later, these guys come out and say, "Hey." And so I'll start with the name of this study. Okay, the name, they called it "Genetic Insights into Agronomic and Morphological Traits of Drug Type Cannabis." Now, ignore the drug type cannabis, they're just talking about the cannabis, but the agronomic and morphological traits basically are traits for like growing, agricultural growing, and morphological, so like the plant structure and its body and shape and stuff. So basically, this year, like literally like 6 months ago, not even, or literally 6 months ago, I take it back. They published this article which basically officiates like 18 genetic markers that they've identified in cannabis. So what they've done is they've basically taken like 176 different cannabis plants legally, I think, and identified a bunch of genetic markers that are linked to very specific traits like yield, plant size, flowering time. If you guys remember, we were talking about this in the last study, and basically they found 18 genetic markers, okay, that could help breeders select plants. So like if you wanted to, find, plants that had specific traits and whatnot, and how much they're gonna, be helpful. So like, for example, like you can have markers that make plants shorter, and potentially better suited for indoors, or markers that make them flower sooner, which could like speed up the harvest cycle. So this is huge, right? And basically these guys have done the work where they I forget how they called it. They called it genome wide association studies, it which is like some methodology or something they use to basically track and match cannabis traits across all these different cannabis plants that they were studying. And now we have 18 confirmed markers, which if the guys in the previous study were to hear about, they'd be like, wait a minute, these guys are doing the right thing. We're on to something. So yeah, thoughts? What do you guys think?
That's pretty crazy. So they've only mapped out 18 so far. Did they
Yeah.
say anything about how many they potentially are?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember
'Cause,
them
yeah,
mentioning that. I'll definitely
I,
have to look that one up.
yeah, I was thinking about this when you were talking about the last one, but
They mentioned that there's a bunch that they could like understand as far as what they're trying to do, but
mm,
the ideal goal here was they were trying to identify specific things, and as far as I know, that like they accomplished that, right? So specifically things that could help breeders develop basically cannabis that's optimized for different things, right? Like, so
super,
indoor
yeah.
harvest is one thing, indoor growth is one thing, quicker harvest is another thing. So like specifically targeting those, and they were successful, right? So mapping those things out, they were successful in mapping those things out, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's super important when we think about like the genetics of a plant. Going further, you want to get good genetics into your plant. But this is laying out the groundwork for
Yeah,
modifying the genetics for the limited genetic diversity that's out there, but that you need, and you need all this time to get through. Potentially with CRISPR in this, you could be looking to overcome that immediately.
yeah. That would revolutionize the game. Though I'd imagine it's relatively costly to do all this.
Well, so these guys
Um,
have so now it's just information. These guys have done the work to get the
mm,
information. Now I imagine anyone with a CRISPR machine is gonna possibly start trying this now. I mean, there's no reason for people who have the extra time and cash to and the craze with, and maybe a CRISPR machine already at home, like, to not try it, right? I imagine this would be just like a fun experiment for them. They're like, wait, I could just look up the genetic markers for flower or yield and start playing with it. Yeah, I think that's crazy.
yeah, that is pretty crazy. I wonder, did they say anything about like if you mess with certain traits, if it affects anything outside of
No,
that trait?
no. The only so I remember only in the first study and in the second study, they did mention basically how, uh, like there's a basically there's a bunch of different markers that are associated with like a bunch of different traits. And it's kind of like I forget how they mapped it out. They used some like incredibly weird long named method for mapping it out, but basically they were able to get this stuff down to the T, and they're getting it to the point where if you wanted to make accurate predictions about very specific things, so at least these 18 you're very highly correlated or very very accurate. So these are like things like size, flower time, yield. So I mean, as far as and other things as well, but like as far as what's important to breeders for growing, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, just the fact that they were able to accurately come up with this, which I have to imagine over time will get better because AI, machine learning, AI, all this is only going to get faster and better at, matching and coming to these conclusions and looking at, images and eliminating human error. It becomes a lot better if we're talking about, we can identify 18, then we can probably identify all of them with AI.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a time thing,
Yeah. Yeah, I guess once you get the first one, then you know the process. Then, it's just
Yeah.
a matter of time.
They were showing this study of where doctors were viewing these medical imagery, like scans, and for like I think it was for some kind of cancer, and something like a huge percentage of the doctors are unable to accurately identify it properly. In fact, in just you can just take this case in general, like how many misdiagnoses there are when it comes to like looking at an image for like a bone, like a X-ray or an MRI. AI, on the other hand, like 0% error rate. Like they tend to be so accurate because like they're just looking at the data, they're looking at the image, right? And they're able to like really get it down to a high accuracy of correctness. So like I just knowing that like we'll be able to soon, instead of relying on humans to get 18 genetic markers out of 176 plants, that we'll be able to feed an AI 3,000 plants and pull out 500 markers and then rebuild the plants the way we want to.
That's crazy. I wonder if that'll eventually change the genetic structure of cannabis. Cause like,
Over time,
yeah, like if
yeah,
we find out that it
it's like
works
dogs,
better
man.
with a different, yeah,
You're just gonna
that's
grow them out.
crazy. Future cannabis may not look anything
It
like
outgrew
what it looks
itself.
today.
That's crazy. I would think though a bigger thing I'd be worried not worried about, interested in, is would there be a market then for the non-modified one, or in not even in the sense that like one's better than the other, but like I would think that there's a label that I would want to see on my cannabis that would say this one was genetically modified.
Oh, I'd imagine for sure. Um, like once it's in like common practice,
Yeah,
there's always that sect of people that I mean the same thing happened with genetically modified like fruits and vegetables.
yeah.
Um, so like there's always people are gonna be concerned once you start playing with genetics.
And especially
Um,
genetics, man.
yeah. Because I'd imagine part paranoia, part just like not ignorance, not understanding like the process.
Yeah. And just generally, if the market's going in that direction, like say we know that this is next, we know that genetic genome editing, CRISPR, these particular traits, like say increasing the flower. So if we know this is coming, and say it is coming and to the fullest, that would have some consequences in the entire production in the market, because it would be possible that you'd see, like, over 5-10 years, say they started it now and we got to some good point in 10 years, we could see double the flower yield, or the amount of flower, right? We could see like a huge spike in percentage of THC in a plant. We could see like a whole array of expansion as far as like what this deep end of gene editing can go to, and how much of it's legal, like how strong are you allowed.
Oh, that's crazy. If you can modify the THC.
Yeah, I mean, that's what these guys are
Man.
saying, right? So these guys are saying, particularly for medical, that you want to either maintain or increase specifically one or the other, right? THC or CBD, without affecting the other one.
Yeah,
And
you'd want to increase the CBD, I'd imagine, for
yeah,
medical.
exactly. And in reality, what you tend to be getting here is, like, you kind of have to just grow it and deal with it. But in the future,
Mm.
if you know that this is coming, like, not gonna lie, your business is kind of looking at like who's gonna adopt it first, and the sooner you adopt it, the better. Obviously, there's risk in the first people to adopt it, but
Mm.
you know, trailblazers are trailblazers for a reason.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see who's the first one to really use this.
Verano, we hear you. We know.
I don't know. Hook us up with a sponsor if
Hit us
we
up.
put you on it, yeah.
We'll get you on the show. Episode
Oh,
6.
that'd
Verano.
be cool. That'd be cool. See, um, is that all you had on this study?
Yeah. If you
Yeah,
if you want to go with yours, if you guys have any questions about this, I don't mind asking, going through
I
one
think
more.
my curiosities have been satisfied. Yash,
Nice.
anything from you?
No, it, it's actually really interesting. A lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's things I wouldn't know because I don't study a lot of this, but it's really interesting to hear and actually learn a little bit more on all this stuff.
Cool. All right. TJ, you had one?
All right. The last one is a future project I want to do one day. So aeroponics, a relatively new growing style, is pretty awesome. So it follows kind of similar mechanics to like aquaponics in the sense of exposed roots, but they do like towers. So instead of the roots being submerged in water, they mist the roots with nutrient filled water to keep them moist. But the increase in oxygen actually allows the roots to kind of like explode. And they grow like some pretty intense root structures with aeroponics. Um, they also, claim increased yields, not so much as like the plant, reached its genetic cap, but more so that like because it's vertical, you can fit a lot more plants in the same amount of area. Um, and they all kind of converge, all the roots converge into the center. You can actually do this with like a lot of plants you can grow this way, but for weeds specifically, they do grow really strong roots. That and in turn, like I've heard people claim that from clones, they can cut down the period for the clones' roots to really set. Um,
Wait.
and
How?
because they claim it's because of the extra oxygen. So it's weird to think, but plant roots need oxygen.
So you're saying okay. So I hear two main things here. So one was that the roots like size increase or explode in
Oh yeah,
size.
cause there's nothing that's resisting them. So
Okay, yeah.
they
Continue.
grow
Yeah.
free and wild. It's actually, a curse and a blessing in aeroponics specifically because that's one of the major, issues that they face when they're growing, that they grow so wild that they get tangled with, the roots of other plants and they basically choke each other out.
Right.
Um, and um,
So that's got to
it
look like a whole like vine jungle.
Oh yeah. It is because they're all put in at an angle. So imagine tilting a plant and then making a circle with it with more plants, right?
Are you just
They
wrapping
all
it
the roots.
around?
Yeah, essentially, they're like kind of pill-shaped towers. And you just plant. There's little holes on the outside, kind of beehive style. And all the roots go into the center portion where, you have a pump and a mister going up. And it sprays the roots to keep them from drying out. And because it lets the roots get bigger, like, they're claiming that like a lot of the plants, if everything is done correctly, that the plants are generally healthier um, than other growing styles.
And so, I mean, like maybe it's just me, but like, does gravity not have some kind of like effect on the plant anymore? Like, I don't think all
In a
plants can't
way,
grow in all environments, right? Like plants
yeah,
can't
no,
grow
no.
upside down. Like a plant
So
that normally grows right side up, can it grow upside down?
I'd imagine theoretically you probably could if you have the light on the bottom.
As
Um,
in, like, if you got it to
I
stay in place.
yeah, if you got it rigged, I'd imagine the plant could grow upside down. No, I don't know
That's
that for sure,
interesting.
but if you as long as
It keeps
basically
getting
reverse the
nutrients.
system,
Yeah.
um, that's an interesting concept, Joey. I might have to test that
Because
one day.
my main point here is what I'm essentially seeing is okay, we're growing in another way.
Hmm.
It might have an effect on how much we can grow, but the way we're growing it is we're dangling it off the side, like what, exposing its roots on one end and a flower on the other, and it's
Yeah,
just hanging
yeah.
in the air.
Yeah, essentially. Well, it's in like it's in a slot essentially,
Uh,
right? So it's held there by the actual tower, but yeah, it is basically just held there with the roots all converging in the center, enclosed in the tower.
do you think that's
Uh,
more natural for the plant than the in the soil?
no, I think it's more free. I mean, like when you think about it, in the soil, it, the plant needs to use energy to push through the soil, right? To
Yeah.
grow through the soil. There's nothing resisting their growth in this, so they kind of just build you know as efficient as they can, right?
Mm.
Um, So, like I said, one of the problems is, one, roots will clog the nozzles and stuff, because like parts will break off. Um, and then, with them being all converging together, if roots get tangled up and whatnot, you can get like root rot. Um,
Do you have to keep them untangled? That sounds like
kind
work.
kinda. I'd imagine it's a lot about like placement
Can
and
you just can you just like dangle some like heavy weights at the end of the roots and they just never get tangled?
Probably not. No, I want,
Is that abuse?
and it'd probably be productive because like the whole premise is that the roots are free
True.
to go exactly how they want, and now if you're doing that, one, I don't think the roots would support like any significant amount of weight that would allow it. But
Just staple them, TJ, obviously.
yeah, just staple them. But like I mean, it would like the main way to combat your roots gain is correct spacing on the
Mm.
tower holes so that each one has ample space.
So just
Uh,
being logical, just being
yeah,
smart about it.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm making like because there's still gonna be like a general rule for how much they grow. Um, like it's not gonna be like the plant at the top is growing roots that are reaching all the way to the bottom.
Wait.
But
So then on that, so isn't cannabis like a tree? Like, isn't it? Doesn't it
um,
grow like the tree part of it fairly big? Are
are
you
you talking
getting?
about the stem,
Yeah, yeah. The main part of the cannabis
the
plant,
main
right?
stem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it
So
like a
that
tree when it grows big?
sorta not. I mean, it's not wood. It's
True,
more
true,
like
true. Yeah,
it's a
but
flower.
it's like a big
Um,
plant.
it's like a thick flower.
Yeah,
It is a thick flower.
but it's a big plant, right? Like it grows
Rel-
fairly tall.
Relatively, it not like a tree. It'd be more like closer to bush
Sure.
size.
I mean, so like when you would be growing this aeroponically,
Hmm.
would you be growing bushes in the sky?
Um, they didn't mention, but they seem to follow a lot of other practices that hydroponics follow. So I'd imagine bushing their plants is probably quite normal, and I
Wait,
don't
what
think
is
it's
bushing? What does that mean?
so when you top a plant. So you cut, you wait, typically you wait for like, I think it's a third node to develop, and then you cut the top of the plant. And what that'll do is that'll basically tell the plant, hey, it's dangerous out here. And it's going to create more branches, like a split. So that one
Wow.
stem will split. Yeah. And you can do this multiple times. And a lot of growers like to bush their plant because you get more um typically you get more yield because there's more bud sites. Um but yeah, I'd imagine when they're growing in aeroponics they do the same thing, and it is kind of, I mean, it's not like exactly like a full bush, but yeah, it probably takes up like a whole lot of area.
So you'd just be if you walked into a commercial aeroponics cannabis cultivation, you'd be walking into like bushes
Oh
hanging
yeah,
from the sky.
sort of, not hanging from the sky, but like they're attached to like these towers.
Sure, sure, sure.
Like
Hanging from towers, hanging in
yeah,
towers.
they're coming out of towers.
Kind of, they're growing out of towers.
Yeah, yeah,
These bushes.
yeah. Essentially, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
and
you
so
you
like,
grow a lot of things, strawberries. I'd imagine anything that's not like a tree or
how
uh
would you do lighting in an aeroponic setup?
uh pretty similarly. I mean, a lot of people use LEDs for them because like you really at least in the article they claim that you wanted kind of a balance of natural light and artificial light. So like a lot of them in greenhouses, LEDs, because of the customization of light. Um, but yeah, you do the same thing. Check your light to make sure. I'd imagine your light placement would be a little bit different because um, opposed to like wanting it directly like above it, you'd probably want them kind of coming at an angle.
And do you think this has like a definitive better yields, same yields, or
Um,
is it just
like
another
so
way?
in terms of individual plant, I'd imagine it's not much different, but in terms of how many plants you could fit in the same area, uh, they're claiming it's more.
That's
Um,
huge. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, so like yeah, so they didn't specifically say that the plants you know grew more bud individually than any other strategy, but they said and because of like the placements of the holes, it's like kind of min maxing the space in which because they're going to be going off at different angles, you got to remember. So instead of all being kind of lined up in a row, they're coming in at angles and taking up you know
Right.
eh,
They're being smart about it. It's all about space in that sense
yeah.
then. Cool, cool. All right. So I think that wraps up today's deep dive into our cannabis talk, tech, and science. So I hope you guys, liked this as much as I did. I took a lot from this. I really like this conversation. I hope we can do another one. Maybe we'll need some more time to figure out what we want to talk about again. But these were really good. I think the people would love to see another one of this. So if you were watching and you stuck around to the end, leave a comment on what you found most exciting from what we talked about, and maybe a discovery or new tech or science of your own that you know about in the cannabis industry. And if you found the video helpful, leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell to stay up to date with us. And yeah, check us out at growthehigh.com, and peace.